Father, we come before you today in the name of your Son, Yehoshua. We welcome your presence and your spirit. We welcome those that are here in this realm and any in the unseen realm to come and join us. And as my brother Albert and I were talking last night, we better get used to that because this is not the real deal. The real deal is with you. And that's the things right now that we cannot see. But we can read about them in your word and study them and pray that one day we will be together. So we pray that that day will come quickly, Yah. Amen. This Torah portion this week is Mishpatim. Mishpatim starts by giving verdicts and right rulings about matters that may arise within this set-apart nation that's talked about. Mishpatim, which means judgments in our English tongue, ends with the covenant cut with Yah. And the called ones, did he not say, you, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and the elders come? So he called a certain small group. The called ones, they see Aleph, Tav, Elohai, it says in the Hebrew. They see the one who said, I am the Aleph and the Tav, the Alpha and Omega, Elohai. I like the way one guy puts it. Elohai kind of sounds like El, which is God, and Chai, which is life, the God of life. He says he is the life, so makes sense to me. But let's go there where they see this Aleph Tav Elohai, Exodus 24, 5 through 10. And we're going to start there. Exodus 24, 5 through 10. And it says that he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto Yah. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read in the audience of the people, and they said, all that Yah hath said we will do, and be obedient. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant which Yah hath made with you concerning all these words. Then went up Moshe and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and they saw the Elohim of Israel. And there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of sapphire stone, and as it were, the body of heaven in his clearness. Now, if we go back to verse 7, what did the people say? All that Yah hath said, we will do, and be obedient. And that's why I said that song is appropriate that she prayed earlier. I'm listening. Talk to me. All that Yah has spoken, we will do and hear. You will be our God, and we will serve you. But what does it mean to be a Hebrew servant? We crossed over from darkness to light in the Messiah, from death to life. Now what? Let's go back to Exodus 21 and read verses 1 through 6. It says, now these are the judgment, the Mishpatim, which thou shalt set before them. If thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve you, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. Now, if we had to ask ourselves, studying later on in the Torah, what this is talking about, what is that talking about? Probably the year of release, right? If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master hath given him a wife, and she has borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free. Then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door, or unto the door post, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Now in the Hebrew, every time it says master, it says he shall bring him to his Lord. Now we're told in the New Testament these things are spiritually discerned. That's one thing that certain guy I was listening to last night was telling. He said Messianic Judaism and Christianity is a lie. There's only Judaism. But we're told in the New Testament these things are spiritually discerned. We know things come first in the natural, but they have a spiritual implication and an understanding to it. So if we look at this in a spiritual sense, we're talking about our Lord. Did not Joshua, I say Joshua the Messiah, just so anybody who has never heard me before, when instead of Jesus, I just say Joshua because it more clearly represents the meaning of the name. Did not Joshua the Messiah say he was the door? Did not he say, he that has ears, let him hear? So if we look at this in a spiritual sense, and we want to keep serving our master, our Lord, who is the door and opens ears, opens eyes, this is what we do. You say, I don't want to leave your house. I don't bring, all this is the Father's, everything. Both like what I said earlier, both in the seen and in the unseen realm. That's his house. I don't bring anything in. So how can I leave with anything? Everything I have is a gift from above. So that's how we got to look at this. That's what it means to be a Hebrew servant. To believe there is only one master, one Lord, and serve him alone. As it is written, you shall worship Yah and him alone. Joshua the Messiah said that also. We will do and hear, they said. But let's take a look at two ways that are not the way. And the first one I want to look at is in Nehemiah, chapter 9. Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 24 through 30. It's a little dark in here. Is there any way I can get a little bit more light on my page, or is that it? Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 24. These are the fathers after they returned out of exile into Babylon for disobedience. They heard, but they didn't do. This is our family, so it's not like I'm knocking them, saying, oh, I got to bring this up. We were sitting in line to watch that thing the other day, the crossing of the Red Sea, and the lady behind me and I kept silent, but she said, boy, those Israelites sure were stupid. They didn't see the Messiah. They're a bunch of stupid people. I'm like, okay. But this is our family. If we're in the Messiah, we're of the Commonwealth of Israel. That's good enough. Thank you. This is our family we're talking about here. And the fathers, they had already perished. But he starts out in 24 and says, talking about all the things that we've done wrong. So the fathers perished. So he says, so the children went in and possessed the land. And thou subduest before them the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, and gavest them into their hands with their kings and the people of the land, that they might do with them as they would. And they took strong cities in a fat land, and possessed houses full of all goods, wells digged, vineyards, and olive yards, and fruit trees in abundance. So they did eat and were filled, and they became fat. Jeshurun waxed fat. And they delighted themselves in thy great goodness. Nevertheless, they were disobedient and rebelled against thee, and they cast thy law behind their backs, and slew thy prophets which testified against them to turn them to thee, and they wrought great provocations. Therefore, thou deliverest them into the hand of their enemies who vexed them. Why did he give them to the hand of the enemies? Because they cast all his laws behind their backs. All the instructions, the Torah, that's not for us. We'll do our own things, what's right in our own eyes. And in the time of their trouble, when they cried unto thee, thou heardest them from heaven, and according to thy manifold mercies, thou gavest them saviors, who saved them out of the hand of their enemies. But after that they had rest, they did evil again before thee. Therefore leftest thou them in the hand of their enemies, so that they had the dominion over them. Yet when they returned and cried unto thee, thou heardest them from heaven. And many times thou didst deliver them according to thy mercies, and testifiedst against them, that thou mightest bring them unto thy Torah. Yet they dealt proudly, and hearkened not unto thy commandments, but sinned against thy judgments, Mishpatim, which if a man do, if he will do and hear, he shall live in them, and withdrew the shoulder, and hardened their neck, and they would not hear. Yet many years thou didst forbear them, and testifieth against them by thy Spirit in thy prophets. That would be his Holy Spirit, right? By thy Spirit in thy prophets, who are also servants. Yet they would not give ear. Therefore gavest thou them into the hand of the people of the lands. All that he says, we will do and hear. But the history of our people is, that's not what we do. We hear, but we don't do. We hear in this congregation, I know we hear and we try to do, and we're going to fall short. But there are many voices out there telling us that we don't have to do those things anymore. From both sides. Those who don't believe in this Messiah and those who do. They're telling you you don't have to. And even some are telling you the 10 words spoken from the mountain. You don't have to worry about that no more. Another example. Let's read Psalms 50. Psalms 50 is another example of one of the two ways that I brought today that are not of the way. It starts off saying, the mighty God, even Yah, hath spoken. In the note here to the side, it says, in his translation, it says, the God of gods Yah hath spoken, and called the earth from the rising of the sun unto the going down thereof. He says, out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, Elohim hath shined. Our Elohim shall come and shall not keep silent. Our Elohim shall come and shall not keep silent. A fire shall devour before him, and it shall be very tempestuous round about him. He shall call to the heavens from above, and to the earth, that he may judge his people. Mishpatim. Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. Now, we just read of one covenant, right? Where he put it on stony tablets. Then we read later on about a covenant that's made on the fleshly tablets of our heart. And the heavens shall declare his righteousness, for Elohim is judge himself. Selah. Think about that. Hear, O my people, and I will speak. O Israel, and I will testify against thee. I am Elohim, even thy Elohim. I will not reprove thee for thy sacrifices or thy burnt offerings to have been continually before me. I will take no bullock out of thy house, nor he-goats out of thy folds, for every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle on 1,000 hills, those are his also. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field, those are mine too. If I were hungry, I would not tell thee, for the world, that's mine as well, and the fullness thereof, everything in it. Will I eat the flesh of bulls, or drink the blood of goats? This is what he wants. Offer unto Elohim thanksgiving, and pay thy vows to Elyon, the Most High. And call upon me in the day of trouble, and I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me. But then he says unto those who hear and won't do, which he calls Rasha, wicked. But unto the wicked Elohim saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes? Or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth? Seest thou hatest instruction, and casteth my words behind thee? When thou sawest a thief, then thou contendest with him, or you went along with him, and hast been partaker with adulterers. Thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. You even talk against your own mother's son. These things hast thou done, and I kept silent. Or as other translations say, I will not keep silent. There's a day coming when he will speak. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such as one as thyself. You thought I'd be approving of all these things. But I will reprove thee, and set them in order before thine eyes. Now consider this, ye that forget Eloah, God, lest I tear you in pieces, and there be none to deliver. Whoso offereth praise glorifieth me, and to him that ordereth his conversation aright will I show salvation of Elohim. That's what I want to see, salvation. Save me, O Yah, because I have been in this evil crowd when I did everything that was right in my own eyes. When I was a child, I acted just like a child until I started receiving instruction of my father. Got a long way to go. But that's why we come here in these cycles and daily getting our bread. So those are some ways that we don't want to be like those who are of a different way. How many claiming to follow the Messiah today do not do, but only hear? How many cast all his words behind their back? Practicing, and I'm sure you heard this, the so-called greasy grace and sloppy agape. You've heard that, right? Practicing those things. Hey, grace covers everything. And they just want to love, love, love. We're just going to. Well, to be a Hebrew servant means you do things the Hebrew way. And that's his way. Romans 1:1 and Titus 1:1. Paul states servitude or subjection to the master, the king. So does Peter in 2 Peter 1:1, a servant. And Jude in his letter, a servant. John is called a servant in Revelation 1:1, as is James in James 1:1. All claim that even though they seek sonship, they say they serve. They serve by doing and obeying. But don't we just love the Lord and our neighbor? Isn't that what Jesus said? Just love the Lord God and love your neighbor. You know, love your neighbor as yourself. It's a joke, okay, so don't take me serious, but I mean, oh yeah, just, you know, go up and rub all over your neighbor. That's love your neighbor as yourself, right? Greasy grace and sloppy agape. Let's refer to that covenant that we read back in Exodus, that we do in here. But to do it, we're going to go into the new covenant to read that old covenant. So I'm going to turn to Romans. And he's not going to read it in its entirety, but we're going to learn what true love is. So, and we're going to turn, he starts off actually talking about some servitude to some worldly powers too. So let's start in Romans 13:1, and I'm going to go through about 12. This is Paul. And he says, let every soul be subject or serve unto the higher powers. For there is no power but of Elohim. The powers that be are ordained of Elohim. Now that could even be negative powers, because he sits as judge of all. Do we not wrestle against principalities and powers, thrones and dominions, things in the heavenly places that we can't see? And we war against those things. And not all of them are good. But it says they're ordained of Elohim. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God. And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. That's the way it should be. But you see some rulers in this world that go a little crooked. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. Even if they're worldly powers and you're a good citizen, wouldn't they praise you for that? For he is the minister of God to thee, for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain. Even some of our worldly powers, they have the power of the sword. They have the power if you break the laws. And like in our country, a lot of the laws are based on this. And it'll get you the power of the sword, a death sentence. For he is a minister of Elohim, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for your conscience. For this cause pay you tribute also, to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, and honor to whom honor. Modern translation, pay all your taxes and fees. Tax season, right? It says here to pay all that. You know we don't like it. Then he goes on to say, oh, no man anything. And here we go. Love your neighbor as yourself. But to love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the Torah. Okay? Fulfilled the Torah. Does he say that he hath done away with the Torah? That he's abolished the Torah because he loved him? See, we got that going on where that's casting the words behind the back. To fulfill, they claim, is to abolish. To fulfill is to be doing it, to hear and to do and to hear. And then he goes on to say, for this, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Now, if the Torah is done away with, what's he doing saying this? Isn't that what we just read in Exodus? Same thing. There's nothing new. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the Torah. And that knowing that the time that now is high time to awake out of our sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. It's nearer for us than it was for him. Because we're coming to the end of days. The night is far spent, and the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. So what we see is the greatest love that you can show is the 10 words. All but one have you shall not as the command. And what you shall not do to Elohim and to your neighbor shows the greatest love. I'm not against good works, feeding people, clothing people, things like that, helping people out when they're in a bind. But the greatest love of all is the 10 words, the things you are not to do to people, that we shouldn't bring ill will against another or against our Elohim. It's to not do certain things. There's only one that I found there's something that there's not contained in the commandment, you shall not, and that's the one to honor your mother and your father. But if we say, well, if you're not going to honor them, then it's you shall not dishonor them, right? So it's really in there too. But the you shall nots are the greatest commandments and the greatest acts of love that you can do while you're walking on this earth. So love is keeping the Father's commands. But beware. Watch out. So one might come and preach another Jesus, another Joshua to you. That's that greasy grace and sloppy agape again. Hear but don't do. Let's see what Paul says about that in 2 Corinthians. Get some of that stuff that sticks to the fingers here. 2 Corinthians, Paul speaks about this. 2 Corinthians 11 and verses 1 through 4. He says, would to God that you can bear with me a little in my folly, and indeed bear with me. He says, for I am jealous over you, speaking to those who are there and who are those afar off. I am jealous over you with a godly jealousy. So there's nothing wrong with being jealous, as long as it's a godly jealousy. I said the other day, be jealous over me, y'all. Look at me like if anyone wants to pull me out of your house, that you would say, I'm jealous over that one. For I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Mashiach. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent, the dragon, the devil, and Satan, all one and the same as it says in the book of Revelation, as the serpent beguiled Hava, or Eve, through his subtle ways, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Mashiach. For if he that cometh preacheth another Joshua, whom we have not preached, or if ye receive another spirit than our comforter, which ye have not received, or another good news, a gospel, which ye have not accepted, here's the kicker. Be on guard. Beware. Watch out. Because you may well bear with him. And there are many deceivers that have gone out into the world, it is written. And they're out to get you. They're out to get me. And as many as will follow them into perdition and destruction. So another Jesus or another Joshua, that's another Savior. That means that's an Antichrist. That one usually gets people a little bit more. That's an Antichrist. It's a different Messiah. That would be the same as when you're given the choice. Here's the man, and here's Barabbas. Might as well just choose Barabbas. A lawless deliverer. Right? Says he was a murderer, malefactor, whatever words they use. That's what the people want today. We don't want to follow those old Jewish laws. But we know they're not Jewish laws. They're our Father's instructions on how to live in a set apart and holy nation. But the people said, release Barabbas. We don't want to do that. So let's see what Joshua the Messiah instructs a wise servant to do. Matthew chapter 24. Most of you are familiar with Matthew chapter 24. They pretty much ask him, what's going to be the sign of the end and at thy coming? Well, he was already there, so they must have understood that. In a sense, they understood that he was going to die, bury, and be resurrected, just like he said, and come again. So they ask him these questions. But at the end of Matthew 24, after he tells them all those things, in verse 42, see how I twist things around sometimes? He talks to what he expects a servant to be doing when he returns. And I'm going to read 42 through 51. But he's basically telling them of his revelation. What's it going to be like at the end of the book, at the revelation of Joshua, the Messiah? So he says, just like I said earlier, watch, beware, watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good men of the house, that would be you within your houses, in your families, within our congregations, if the good men of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made him ruler over his household? You know, people that run congregations, the elders and all that, you're in a position where he's given you, he's entrusted in you to be a faithful and wise servant, a ruler. But not only just in congregations, but in our own homes. We're supposed to be faithful and wise servants. But he's made them Lord and ruler over his household, to give them meat or food in due season. When do we congregate? The Moedim, the seasons, the ones that he's instructed that we should do and hear and do. That's when we meet and get together. Like today, the best we can tell, this is the seventh day of the week, so we're here and we're receiving food from the scripture. He goes on to say, blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he comes, the revelation, shall find so doing. Truly I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. And if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Back in verse 50, like I say, we may not be around when that day cometh. When it comes, I don't know the exact day or the hour, but we're to be looking for him within his seasons, his cycles. But I've said before, my day, when he says, tonight or today, your life is required of you, it could come at any time. And what will I be found doing? I need to judge myself and try to work out all those kinks I have in my life and remove that beam from my eye. So when he comes, at least he can look at me and say, give it a good try. I at least want to hear that. You gave it a good try. You still got a lot to learn. So we don't want to be found like that. We don't want to be found in a place where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. We want to be found where we're receiving a good reward. So one of the places we can see that good reward, it is written in Isaiah 65. I'm going to read the whole chapter of Isaiah 65. He says, I am sought of them that ask not for me. I am found of them that sought me not. I said, behold me unto a nation that was not called by my name. I have spread out my hands all the day unto a rebellious people, which walketh in a way that was not good. After their own thoughts, a people that provoketh me to anger, continually right to my face, that sacrifice in the gardens, and burn incense upon the altars of brick, which remain among the graves, and lodge in the monuments. They eat swine's flesh, and broth of abominable things is in their vessels. Lately in the news, if you guys watch the news with this coronavirus thing, there's a lot of talk of, did that come from that bat soup that they eat? I mean, literally, people stirring up bats. I mean, where do you see that? You see that in little cartoons with the witch, right? You know, throwing in frogs' eyes and stuff. They're eating this stuff. These same people say, stand by thyself, come not near to me, for I am holier than thou. These are a smoke in his nose, in my nose, he says, a fire that burneth all the day. If you've ever been camping and all that, get close to a campfire or to a barbecue and that smoke goes right up your nose and it burns like crazy. He says that's how these people are to me, just like smoke going up into my nose. He says, behold, it is written before me, I will not keep silent, but will recompense into their own bosom. Your iniquities, your lawlessness, and the lawlessness of your fathers together, saith Yah, which have burned incense upon the mountains, and blasphemed me on the hills. That's where they worship their high ones. Therefore will I measure their former work into their own bosom. Thus says Yah, as the new wine is found in the cluster, and one saith, destroy it not, for a blessing is in it. So will I do for my servants' sake, that I may not destroy them all. Some translations it says, it's not servants, but for my servant's sake, being the Messiah. And I will bring forth a seed out of Yaakov, and out of Yehudah, an inheritor of my mountains. And mine elect shall inherit it, and my servants shall dwell there. And Sharon shall be a fold of flocks, and the valley of Achor a place for the herds to lie down in, for my people that have sought me. Then he gets on to the ones who do not hear and do. But ye are they that forsake Yah, that forget my holy mountain, that prepare a table for that truth, for God, not God like in Elohim, but God like in that, or the God, and that furnish the drink offering unto that number. There's a note here that says that number is another God. Say it. There you go. He's got it. Menu, Menai, Mini. It's another God that they worshipped on the high hills. So he goes on to say, therefore I will number you to the sword, and ye shall all bow down to the slaughter, because when I called, ye did not answer. When I spake, ye did not hear. but did evil before mine eyes, and did choose that wherein I delighted not, those things that are vain or of no profit. Therefore, thus saith Adonai Elohim, or Adonai Yah, behold, my servants. This is why I came here, really. Not just always pointing out the bad, but then what he says about the good, those who serve him. Behold, my servant shall sing for joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow, and they shall howl for vexation of spirit, and ye shall leave your name for a curse unto my chosen. For Adonai Yah shall slay thee and call his servants by another name. That he who blesseth himself in the earth shall bless himself in the Elohim of truth. And he that sweareth in the earth shall swear by the Elohim of truth. Because the former troubles are forgotten, and because they are hid from mine eyes. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered. Nor shall they come into mind. But be ye glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem a rejoicing, and her people are a joy. And I will rejoice in Jerusalem, and joy in my people, and the voice of weeping shall be no more heard in her, and the voice of crying. There shall no more be an infant of days, nor an old man that hath not filled his days. For the child shall die, being 100 years old. But the sinner, being 100 years old, shall be accursed. And they shall build houses and inherit them, and they shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit thereof. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For as the days of a tree are the days of my people, and mine elect shall long enjoy the work of their hands. I was thinking maybe I skipped over something, but that's why I keep looking back. They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth for trouble. For they are the seed of the blessed of Yah, and their offspring with them. And it shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer. And while they are yet speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion shall eat straw like the bullock. No more carnivorous beast. Now, how can that be? Really, if you think about it, would that not be a miracle? To see even the animals at peace among each other? That you could walk out to the most fierce and vicious animal that's on the planet now and just walk up and pet it? Wouldn't that be something? And dust shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, saith Yah. I mean, that is a good reward to live in a land like that. This is a good inheritance here. So we want to be those who do and hear. But let us remember, there is a day coming, and it burns as an oven. And we are instructed to remember his servant Moshe. See, he's also called a servant. Remember back when Miriam got the leprosy? What did he say? Why are you speaking against my servant Moshe like that? That's what we want to be found, servants. We're serving the Most High. We're not anything of ourselves. But we are instructed to remember his servant Moshe. We find that instruction in Malachi, which speaks of that day that's coming, that is burning like an oven. In another place it's written, it's not going to leave, and it might even be here, I'm not sure, but it's just coming to mind. It's not going to leave certain entities, root nor branch. And I say entities because it's not really talking about trees. It's not going to leave them root or branch. That's total destruction. How could anything live if the very root is burned up? But in Malachi, let me find it. Chapter 3 is where I'm going to start. And in verse 13, he says, remember my servant, Moshe. What did Moshe do? When we are too afraid to hear, they said, you go. So he brought, as a servant, the words to the people. He starts off in verse 13 of chapter 3 saying, talking to his people, not talking to the world, talking to us. It says, your words have been stout against me, saith Yah. Yet ye say, what have we spoken so much against thee? Ye have said, it is vain to serve Elohim. We don't want to be servants. And what profit is it that we have kept his ordinance and that we have walked warnfully before Yah Savaot? You know, it comes to my mind, there's another place. They said they had it better when they were making cakes and burning incense to the Queen of Heaven. I'm sure many of you remember that. They said it was a vain thing to worship the Creator of all. And now you call the proud happy. Yea, they that work wickedness or lawlessness, they're set up. And there are many in this world. But what David say? Until I entered the sanctuary and seen their end, they're even set up. Yea, that tempt or test Elohim are even delivered. But then it says, then they that feared Yah spake often one to another, and Yah listened and heard it. And a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared Yah and that thought upon his name. And they shall be mine, says Yah, Savaot, the Lord of hosts. In that day, when I make up my jewels, my segulah, my peculiar ones, in that day, and I will spare them as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. Then shall ye return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth Elohim and him that serveth him not. Front of the book to the back, he's looking for servants, those who will do his will, walk just like the Son did. But that just tells me right there's coming a day, just like in Egypt, when he's going to make a division between people. And we don't know the day or the hour. We don't want to be caught on the wrong side. And I speak, like I always say, for myself. I mean, I like to think a lot of times I'm trying to walk in his ways, but we all know that our flesh, the world, the devil, gets to us. So we got to be awake, watchful, aware, beware. It could come. The real deal can go down at any time. For behold, that day cometh and shall burn as an oven, and the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Yah Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts. that it shall leave them neither, there it is, I must have remembered it from last night, shall leave them neither root nor branch. Well, what would that do, Neil? If there was no root or branch, how much life is left in that tree? Nothing. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. And ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. And ye shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet. In that day I shall do this, saith Yah Sabaoth. Remember ye the law of Moshe, my servant. So we know the day that burns as an oven hasn't got here yet. So until that day comes, he says, remember my servant Moshe, which I commanded unto him, that Torah in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and the judgments, the Mishpatim, the thing that our Torah portion is named after, the statutes and the judgments. Remember all that. And the mixed multitude, if you want to be part of the commonwealth. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Yah. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with total destruction. Because that's what it says in the Hebrew when it uses that word curse. I didn't look it up last night, but I'm sure it's kerem or something like that. That's total destruction. To me, he's saying, if there's not a remnant, if I don't find a few righteous like in Sodom and Gomorrah, I'm just going to wipe the whole thing out. But he tells a certain people who serve him to remember his servant Moshe and that Torah that was delivered, or else he would come and wipe the whole thing out. Brothers and sisters, come to Joshua and have your ears open. Come to that door and have your ears pierced. In Revelation, he addresses the congregations, the menorah or the menorahs, however you look at it. And he says 7 times, he that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the congregations. So we want to pray to have our ears open and hear what the Spirit is telling us. And what are the rebukes? Are they about panhandlers? Are they about soup kitchens? I'm not saying, like I said earlier, good works. No, good works are good. There are rebukes against breaking Torah, is everything he's telling the congregations. The other things are good also. The main thing we want to do is to do and hear the words spoken from the mountain. And don't let any of these voices today that are telling us, you don't have to worry about that, because they are saying it. You know, I'm listening and watching a lot of stuff. There's a lot of voices out there. They're saying some pretty strange things, trying to pull you away from the Messiah and from the commandments. Let's close with a short one in Psalms 40. Psalms 40, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 9. A psalm of David, however you want to. His name means beloved, right? A man after God's own heart, or according to his own heart. The beloved one. It says, I waited patiently for Yah, and he inclined unto me and heard my cry. He brought me up also out of a horrible pit and out of the miry clay, and he set my feet upon a rock and established my goings. And he hath put a new song in my mouth, even praise to our Elohim. Many shall see it and fear, and shall trust in Yah. Blessed is that man that maketh Yah his trust, and respecteth not the proud, nor such as turn aside to lies. Many, O Adonai, my Elohim, are thy wonderful works which thou hast done. And thy thoughts which are to usward, they cannot be reckoned up in order unto thee. If I would declare and speak of them, they are more than can be numbered. Sacrifice and offering thou didst not desire. Mine ears thou hast opened. Burnt offering and sin offering hast thou not required. Then said I, Lo, I come. In the volume of the book it is written of me. I delight to do thy will, O my Elohim. Did not Messiah say those words? In the volume of the book it is written of me. The word that became flesh. Yea, thy law, thy Torah, is within my heart. I have preached righteousness in the great congregation. Lo, I have not refrained my lips. O Yah, thou knowest. Father Yah, I say, let these hands never lift up in praise to another mighty one. Father, you are the God of gods, the King of kings, and the Lord of lords. We thank you for your Son that you have sent to show us the way back to Torah, who says not one jot or tittle will pass until all is fulfilled. We thank you for that Son. I would that you would, and anyone who is willing, take these fleshly tablets of my heart and with your finger engrave it deep, so that I may not forget your 10 words and all the other laws, statutes, and ordinances. Engrave them deep. And if anyone come against me, let them be in my mind, and my mind as hard as a rock, so that they try to write, their finger will be broken. Let them that dig a pit fall into it, and who lay a snare be caught with it. Remember your people, Yasharel, the upright ones, and look upon us as the apple, the pupil, the Ishon, the little men that are in your eyes. Remember us for good, and help us to remember you in your holy name forever. Amen.
Thank you for watching a teaching from Emet HaTorah. If you are ever in the Odessa area, we would love to welcome you to our Shabbat service, 11 a.m. every Sabbath. For more information or for more teachings, feel free to find us on the web, www.emethatorohodessa.com. Also, you can find us on Facebook. Thank you. God bless you and your family. Shalom. for watching a teaching from Emet HaTorah. If you are ever in the Odessa area, we would love to welcome you to our Shabbat service, 11 a.m. every Sabbath. For more information or for more teachings, feel free to find us on the web, www.emethatorahodessa.com. Also, you can find us on Facebook. Thank you. God bless you and your family. Shalom.